So what happened was he got home on Tuesday, December 4th. He got home from work at about 8:30. And he came in and he ate dinner.
And we watched the hockey game, which we always do.
Yeah.
Canadians fans.
Went downstairs, watched the Canadians game. And right about at the end of the game, he went back upstairs. He went up to his room. And this is when this 40 hours started. It has to do with social media. Saw something on social media, and he just couldn't move past it. He goes on in his messages. He starts out, he was angry, he was upset. You can see him turn the anger into himself. Just swallow it. And you can see this confident young man just start this self-hatred. I'm not good enough. Nobody will ever love me. I'm ugly. Andrew was anything but ugly. I know I'm his mom, but he was anything but ugly. How he'll never find love. How he wasn't worthy of love. I have a friend who's a psychiatrist. He sat with me for several hours. We went through all of these messages. And he looks at me at the end and he says, you know, Alyssa, clinically, I wouldn't even be able to diagnose your son with depression. He says, your son had an acute adjustment reaction. A overwhelming reaction to a disappointing event in life. That's what he had. And he couldn't make his way out of it. Unfortunately, when he got home on Tuesday night, he had Wednesday off and Thursday off of work. He always had 2 consecutive days off of work during the week. We weren't home, we were at work. Andrew spent 2 days basically alone, other than Wednesday night. And
it was kind of like the perfect storm. I mean, everything came together, the social media, the 2 days off. And that Thursday morning, he got up and we kind of know the steps he took from the phone messages and receipts and everything. We know he went down to the beverage place where he worked and he filled his car up with gas that morning. He got a turkey sandwich and
he talked to the people he would go in there and get his coffee in the morning, and he talked to them about what he was going to do that night. He had plans that night to go out with our daughter and our other son and our niece. They were all meeting at 5 o'clock that night. And he was telling them, this is what I'm doing today. And he had the day off.
And we know that he went into the gun shop and they ran a background check on him at 11:02 Thursday morning, December 6th. We know he was out of the store with a firearm at 11:30. And we know he was dead before 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Andrew had this path that he was taking that day that looked normal to everybody else. He, like I said, he went to Essex Discount Beverage. He got his coffee. He spent time with them, talked to them. He got himself his lunch. He bought a Pepsi because it was in my fridge when I got home. He went to the store. He bought this gun, filled his tank with gas. He came home and he logged into his Xbox on Netflix and watched 2 episodes of Mad Men. He'd been binge watching Mad Men for the last couple weeks. I mean, just regular, everyday things. He did his laundry. Andrew has a collection of darn tough socks that he refused to dry. And that night, I go upstairs, and there are all of his wet socks hanging on the towel rack in the bathroom. He did his laundry, and he hung up his socks because he wanted to save them because he cared about them so much, he didn't want to ruin them. He was never going to wear them again, but he hung them up to dry. He ate a turkey sandwich. First thing I did, open up the garbage can, and there's his turkey sandwich, half eaten. Just a regular day. About...
And reading through his phone messages, when you get to the last day,
It was so calm.
you can almost feel by reading the messages the doubt he had about what he was getting ready to do.
He at the beginning of these messages, he set a countdown, and he kept counting down, and he started his countdown at 36 hours. And then every once in a while, he would come on with 19 hours, 15 hours. Andrew's 36 hours were up at 11 o'clock that morning. Andrew didn't kill himself at 11 o'clock that morning. He's got about 2 hours of messages in this time. And it was like he was doubting it. He was trying to give himself more time. You could see him trying to give himself more time. And he talked about how scared he was. I'm so scared now. I can't breathe. I'm having a hard time breathing. I've never been so unsteady in my life.
And it was getting later in the afternoon, and Andrew knew what time we would be home, which would be within an hour or so. And I think it was the third to the last message he sent.
He sent a long message talking about how he had doubts. He kept saying, a part of me thinks that I shouldn't do this, that I should just wait and get my apartment in Waterbury, and then things will maybe get better. But knowing what I know, I just can't see that happening. But then he kept trying to convince himself over and over again that he shouldn't do it. And then he said, the third to last message he sent, he said, do you want to see something? ? And then he said, I did something today that I shouldn't have done. And now it's too late. And then the person he was messaging said that they were calling the police. And he sent a picture of the gun laying on his bed. And then he said goodbye. And that was it. And I can imagine what he did. The dog would have been in his room, because the dog was always with him. And if he was home, the dog was in the room. And he took the dog and he put the dog out of his room. And he closed his door and he locked it. Andrew never locked his door.
And the whole time he was 15 feet away from guns that are locked up and secured, and he couldn't get to them. He was 15 feet away from weapons that were secured and that have been there for years.
He was running out of time. He knew the police were coming. He knew he had spent his rent money on this gun. He knew it was too late. He just was running out of time. And you can tell he didn't want to do it. But he did it because he'd set it in motion. Because he had said he was going to do it. And how could he go back on his word now? It started as I'm going to do this to hurt you. And it became over this 40 hours, I have to do it because I said I was going to do it. And what choice do I have now?
If we would have just had a chance to get home that night, and just some kind of interaction with other people, if we would have gotten home and had dinner, if he would have gotten up and drove to work the next morning to Lawson's with the people that he loved. I mean, I know
If he had gone out he was supposed to go out to dinner with Victoria and Stephen and Ashley.
he would have woken up and said, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking?
This is stupid. And he wouldn't.
Do you believe that a waiting period would have allowed you
Absolutely.
to talk to him?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It would have given him time to actually be out in public around people. It would have given his brain at least a time to say, because we knew he was coming out of where he had been, this dark hole he had put himself into. We could see him coming out of that. It would have given him time to come out of it. It was a fleeting, 2-day-long self-pity fest, basically, is what Andrew got into. And he wasn't given the time to get out of it. And we firmly believe, we absolutely believe, if there had been a waiting period, he would not have done this. And I know that he wouldn't have done it because he said in his last message, I did something I shouldn't have done. But now it's too late. It was too late. He'd already bought it. What was he going to do now? So, since this happened, obviously, and we were really open about what happened, and that was important to us. It's very important to us that people knew how our son died. Honestly, we actually are armed with far more information today than the day we wrote that obituary. We didn't have these messages on that day. We were just shocked to learn, because the first thing the detective asked us, I remember him standing over our stairwell looking at us saying, well, where would he have gotten the gun? I don't know. He's like, did you ever see it in his room? And no, the thought that he had actually gone out and bought a gun that morning, I couldn't even fathom it. We couldn't even contemplate that something like that could happen. We learned the day we wrote the obituary was when the detective called us and said he bought it that morning. This is when the background check was. Later on, when some of the doctors from my practice I work at came and removed Andrew's mattress from his room, we found a safe under his bed. We didn't even know he had a safe under there. And we had the key to it. It was on his keychain. And we open it up, and there is a perfectly folded receipt for $11.26 that morning, his credit card receipt. $1,000 he spent on this gun. And the bullets, the box of bullets, packed neatly in the back. The instruction manuals and the things that come with it, all neatly placed in the safe. Everything put away like it was for another day.